All right, today is Wednesday, June 20, 2018. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes CSI implementation group. Let's begin with a discussion of PRs that need attention, and we're going to jump to bugs that need to be fixed, then any miscellaneous updates, followed by a review of what tasks we have remaining for 1.11. We are approaching the end of the release cycle for 1.11. I believe it's going to go out by end of next week. Let's see, 1.11. For anyone who's curious, the release schedule is always under SIG release, so feel free to take a look at that if you're ever curious. Looks like the 1.11 release is scheduled to be cut on the 26th, which is 6 days from now. So if you have bug fixes that need to go in, get them in as soon as possible, pretty much by end of week, or you're not going to make it. This is for the core Kubernetes code. So it looks like Lijan added a comment about the changes required for 0.3. Does anybody want to talk about this? Brad, do you have context?
So it was around the drivers, right? Who was going to pick up the development for the updates of the entry drivers?
Okay.
And so we didn't have, we really didn't have anyone staffed to do that, or at least plan to do that.
Yeah. The good news is that between 0.2 and 0.3, there are no breaking changes, so the driver should still work with the current release. Bad thing is that we haven't updated it, and we should, but we can do that in parallel. It doesn't have to hit the 1.11 release, but we should get somebody on that. Let me scroll down to the task list. Let's see here. So we have update the CSI driver for flex volume. Looks like Wong Ma picked that up.
That's Matthew, yeah.
Oh, nice. Oh, I'm glad he's back.
Yep. So he's working on that, and he might be able to pick up another one as well.
Okay. You know what I would love for him to work on is taking over ownership of that external provisioner code.
Yeah, he's doing that right now anyways.
For the longest time, for the external provisioner code, it's kind of been a side project, more or less. And now that we're starting to use it more and more, folks are starting to run into scalability issues and things like that. So it'll be good to have somebody who takes a holistic look at that and says, okay, let's kind of...
Wait, are you talking about the CSI provisioner piece or just the provisioner library in general?
The provisioner library in general. I know there are some assumptions that it makes that are making scaling a little bit more difficult. And it would be good to have someone who takes a look at that holistically and says, okay.
Do you have a list of those problems? I know he was looking at the driver yesterday and today, but I don't think that we have any specifically. So
I know there was a few issues that we were tracking. External provisioner should not issue delete calls between retries. The Cube API server throttles the external provisioner when you create a ton of PVCs at the same time. I think those were the two big ones. And I think both of them kind of, and it looks like he's already looking at it, so that's actually pretty much what I wanted. And I think the problem is that the solutions are not completely obvious, and it requires coordination both between that external provisioner library and the CSI external provisioner. No, it looks like he's already on it, so that's great. Yes, he's doing exactly what I wanted. Excellent. Okay, disregard my comment. Carry on. As for the NFS stuff, yeah, it looks like he picked up the Flex one. iSCSI, NFS, and HostPath currently have no owners, so we can mark those as red. And hopefully somebody can help with that.
I'm looking into helping with that. Saad.
Okay. Which one?
I have another. The last three just mentioned, the iSCSI. Basically,
NFS, iSCSI, and HostPath?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I have another gentleman that I'm kind of bringing up to speed internally so he can.
Oh, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I'll put your name down for now, and then
Yep.
we can revise that as needed.
Absolutely.
While we're down here, sorry,
Just to let you know that the host path one for 0.3, somebody's working on adding snapshot support to that right now. I've been reviewing their code. So it's I can get you the actual name. It's on the actually WG CSI channel.
Okay, that's good to keep in mind. So make sure we coordinate. All right, so let's just do the task list while we're here. Internal updates to documentation. Luis, do you have any updates here?
Sorry, I have not been able to update. Actually, I wanted to ask you, what's the highest priority for my tasks that you need this week?
So let's see, you've got assigned to you the documentation, internal and external. What else do you have assigned to you?
I've been reviewing mostly, so.
Okay. And you have this update documentation. Okay, so we can just remove this because it's just a task that we're tracking. So yeah, just update documentation. That's the highest priority.
You got it.
Get that done by, yeah, forget about this repo reorganization. I think this is very low pri. I think it's going to add churn. I'm okay not doing it or punting it to a future point. Let's focus on getting the documentation updated.
Let's do that. Okay.
All right, cool.
And please let me know if anyone is looking for reviews. I can help you out with that too.
Yeah, thank you very much for doing that. All right, next item is update the CSI external provisioner sidecar container to pick up CSI 0.3 release changes. Sergey, looks like you have a PR out. Did that get merged? No, it's still open. So Luis, could you take a look at that PR?
You got it.
Cool, thank you. All right, next up is update the external attacher sidecar container to pick up the 0.3 release. Jan, would you be interested in helping with this?
I'm not sure.
If not, I can.
My time allows.
Okay, Vlad, was that
Yeah, this
awesome.
is one of the ones we could take a look at.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Sure.
I'm going to go ahead and mark it as red for now since there's no PR out, but hopefully we can get on that soon. In terms of priority, I would focus on this over the drivers.
Okay, get the attacher up to date with 3.
Yep. Once we got the sidecars updated, then we can focus on updating the drivers.
Okay.
And looks like Sergey has already updated driver registrar, CSI sanity, and mock driver. So thank you very much for that, Sergey.
What about the provisioning?
It's right here. Looks like Sergey already has a PR out for it.
Okay.
So we're looking good there. And then the drivers, now we have folks assigned to it, so that's good. Kubelet device plugin integration, there was some remaining items here. Updated driver registrar with kubelet logic, have this flag, document new behavior, end-to-end test. So updating the driver registrar is in progress. I think David was taking a look at that PR. He LGTM'd it yesterday. I had a few more comments. And hopefully we can get that merged soon. And then documenting new behavior. While you go and update the documentation, Luis, can you sync with Sergey to make sure that the new behavior is captured in the documentation?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And then once that goes in, we'll focus on writing an end-to-end test to make sure that we test this behavior. And then block volume, there was a PR that Vlad had out. I think I LGTM that yesterday for fixing the directory versus file thing.
They got merged.
Okay, perfect. Are there any other outstanding PRs for block volume?
Not right now, but I think I want to go back and look at possibly timeout issues with the CSI, internal CSI drive as a whole.
Okay.
Because talking to Chris, he was saying that he was seeing a bunch of retries until the device was created on this side. So I'm thinking maybe it's just an issue of timeout calls for gRPC. So as a whole, I want to take a look at that for next
Got it.
quarter.
And
Also,
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm about to hold on. I think I'm about to sneeze. Sorry about that. Bad timing. Vlad, do we need documentation added for this section so that driver developers know what to do, or end users?
End users. Well, the thing is, block is something that's supported at a higher level in the volume subsystem. So really, that documentation is already in Kubernetes.
Okay.
But as far as developer, possibly, if they want to support block, they would need to know how that works. Maybe we could throw something together as far as mentioning what needs to happen.
Maybe if it was just a few paragraphs, that would at least help enough.
Okay. Yeah.
So.
All right. I'll ping you about that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm being selfish on that because I don't know how to do it. So you'll be teaching me for my driver.
So the thing is, for block, the provider has to already support it. So that's the thing.
Yep.
So you have to, right. So and it's already really it's already supported in CSI, because there's a type that you will receive when node node stage and the other one I can't think of the name of the method right now, but both of these node related call will pass a specific type that indicates that this is for block.
Oh,
and that's
I see.
all you need. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
I think it's worth just calling out in both places, internal and external, just like, hey, we support this. Here is a real quick toy example of how you use it.
Yep, agreed.
And put a big fat, this is alpha, it's probably broken. Good luck. And
Okay.
then the good thing about that is going to be it'll be a starter for our documentation. It doesn't have to be super extensive, honestly, especially since it's alpha. And then as we move to beta and GA and we get more comfortable with it, we can expand on it and we can say, all right, we're more confident that this feature works as intended, and here's some actual concrete examples as we update our existing volume plugins to support block, to say, hey, go look at this code. This is how you use it. This is how, if you want to build your own, this is a model that you can follow. So for now, I would say just leave these as kind of small stubs with, yeah, this is supported. Here's kind of how you use it, and it's alpha.
All right, Louis, I'll send you a PR with exactly what Saad just mentioned, kind of high level.
Sweet.
How to get the proper types on the driver side to get the block going.
Excellent. That's all I'm looking for. Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, thanks, guys. So that is all we have for the task updates. Let's do miscellaneous updates. We're going bottom up today. Chang per plugin CRD help with topology representation. Any updates on this, or can we drop this as a topic? I think this is going to fold into the discussion of what are we working on next quarter. So I'm thinking the meeting this coming Wednesday, 7 days from now, we should use that as a planning session for this group to decide what it is that we're going to work on. Actually, yeah. Let's just get started over here. Wish list for 1.12. And let's say global plugin registration mechanism. And just start adding to this list all the features that you've been keeping track of. What I'm thinking right now is that we should try to aim for GA by end of year. It's a little bit of an aggressive deadline, but considering how many people are waiting and how long they've been waiting, I'd like to really hit that. We have 2 quarters left, so if we can come up with a list of all the items that we need, so requirements for GA.
By the way, what does it mean, global plugin registration mechanism?
So today we have a registration mechanism for Kubelet, but we don't have a way to be able to register a plugin globally across the clusters to say these are the plugins that are available. There are a few use cases here. One is just a user interface kind of thing, like as an end user, how do I figure out what plugins are installed on my system? That's not very high priority. I'd put that as a P2. Let's say P2.
This is like an extension of what I think I brought up one time, where as a user, I didn't even know what name I should use for my storage class.
Exactly.
So it was a painful to figure that out because I couldn't even figure out the name unless I went to the code. So
are you?
Sorry, go ahead.
Are you? My question was, are you forcing this as a kubectl extension?
I'm thinking about it as a CRD, and yes, CRDs can be fetched with kubectl. So if you do kubectl,
okay.
You know, if we call our CRD CSI plugins, then you should be able to just do a kubectl get CSI plugins and get this information. So that's kind of where we started thinking about this. But then as we started encountering more issues, we thought that actually we could kill multiple birds with one stone. Instead of just being consumed by an end user, theoretically this could also be consumed by other components within Kubernetes programmatically. Specifically, what I was thinking was around the topology labeling stuff. We need somewhere where we can store the prefix for a given volume plugin. It needs to be a cluster-wide value for a given plugin, and today we have no cluster-wide object. And if we have a CRD that's plugin specific, we could add that information there. And if that's something else that we were thinking about was, did you want to add something on?
Yeah, if it is something consumed by Kubernetes, then it can be CRD.
So that's a good point. We talked to SIG architecture last week about adding snapshots to the core API, and they said no, and they told us to add it as a CRD. And I think the question came up about
Hey, Saad, quick clarification.
Go ahead.
Questioning whether it should be CRD, is the other option a proper API type?
It could be, yeah, a proper API type. or in like a first class API.
Okay.
We can probably discuss that later. My feeling is that what SIG architecture wants is that everything is going to be a CRD in the future, that there will be basically little or nothing in the core API. So I'm not sure how long this will last.
Isn't that the opposite of what they said about a year ago, where no internal API calls will talk to CRDs? And that's why.
So I think yes, that was the case, but I think they're moving to a land where there are no internal APIs.
It's about
so
time.
You have CRDs, and then you have controllers that operate on CRDs. In this case, we'll have to evaluate and figure out what are the components that are touching this. If the components that are touching this are entirely external, meaning sidecar containers, we might be fine. If they are internal components that are touching it, then we need to have this discussion. Another option is to use config maps, which is the way that Vlad has been able to get around this in the past.
Yeah, just a hack. Yeah.
So we'll I think that's implementation detail. We can talk about.
Config maps are not allowed either, so I just thought.
Yeah. And Jan, you're exactly hitting the next topic, which was skipping the external attach detach if we because we want to support ephemeral volumes. That's actually another big item for the wish list. And one way to do that is to basically have this global registration mechanism where one of the fields is I support attach or detach, or I don't, and then we can basically add that as a field that our attach detach controller can look at. And I think there was one more use case that's slipping my mind, but in general, it seems like it'll be a useful mechanism. If we end up having to do a first class field, problem is we have to go through the alpha, beta, GA process, which means that's a 3-quarter process, which puts us into Q1. And second drawback is that they might not let us anymore because they're pushing back on any new APIs that are getting added. We might be able to make a stronger case here that CSI is a core component, and so
yeah, I vote for CRDs.
CRDs, yeah.
And I don't even think we should even tell them. We should just do it. And then
Yeah,
say,
if
"Oh,
it's a CRD, we can do it."
yeah,
I'll find out.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, with CRDs, you don't have API guarantee stability.
Right. Yeah, the problem with CRDs is that you actually have to install the CRD before you can use it, and then the question is, who's going to install that? If the core of Kubernetes is installing a CRD, that gets pretty ugly. So we'll need to have this discussion. We don't need to have it now.
Yeah, I mean, if we have an operator kind of thing, a controller running, it's to install the CRD. You always, as you come up, you always try to push it, and it'll return to you that it already exists, and then you just don't do anything. So
yeah,
that'll be fine.
So start adding to this wish list for 112. We can maybe even do this on Friday or Wednesday next week. Let's see how big the list gets. And then we can use that as a way to organize for next quarter. And then I'll try to get a better, maybe create a spreadsheet to track these, or use the existing spreadsheet that we have for SIG storage instead of trying to track it all in here, because I think this list is getting so long it becomes harder to keep track of. If you have any other suggestions for things that we can improve next quarter, let me know. I'm all ears.
I got suggestions, yeah.
Yeah. You want to talk about it now or later?
You mean for project tracking instead of using this thing, the sheet?
Project tracking, anything in general.
this is just my suggestions, my opinions, and I don't mean to push it on other people. Everybody has strong opinions on how to do projects. But I've used a Trello tool. I like the lot of simplicity, and I've also used a GitHub's project, even to track across the repo projects, and those work well too. So yeah, the spreadsheet that you have works well too. The one you use for SIG storage. So
yeah, I think I'd like to have as few different things as possible. So I'm probably going to end up with a spreadsheet.
yeah,
I'm open to any other ideas. Okay, in-tree migration. Jan, you wanted to talk about this?
Yeah, I talked today to Jordan Leggett, and he is a very opinionated guy. We talked mostly about inline CSI volumes and secrets and everything, but we touched also in-tree migration and the current design. Do we have David here?
David, are you on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So the current design expects that we put annotations to PVs and everywhere. And Jordan doesn't like it, and he strongly suggests to have a library somewhere that does this in-tree to CSI translation. And we have it also in the external attacher. Like, that's his suggestion. That's the best from his point of view. And if that's not feasible, then again, he would strongly suggest to put both the old volume source like GCE and new CSI volume source into the PV, like, and not use annotations.
That doesn't work for downgrades, right? Because then you have these PVs with two sources that will just fail validation immediately.
That's right. Okay. Okay, that doesn't work. Anyway, have this validation outside in a small repo somewhere and use it both by the external attacher and Kubernetes. Would it work?
So every external component now needs to know about all of each Kubernetes in-tree thing. But you're saying this is a library that we write, and then each external component can import it and use it to translate?
Yes. Well, each component, there is just the attacher who needs to do the translation.
Yes, but in the future there may be more, right? There may be a
sure.
snapshot controller or other types of controllers or external.
Yeah.
I haven't thought about that too much, but I don't like it as much because it's moving the translation away from the knowledge of what the objects look like, I guess. But I'll have to think about it. There might be more. It might be better.
Okay, I asked him to put a comment into the proposal so we can discuss there.
Okay.
Then another thing we touched were non-attachable CSI drivers. And his suggestion was to put bluntly a field into CSI volume source if it is attachable.
Yeah, I thought about that as well. My problem with that approach is that we're leaking our implementation to the end user. We're saying, hey, end user, what do you think this volume plugin should be? Because we have no way to do it. I don't like that. I would much prefer the other approach, which is if we have some way to be able to register a plugin and then add that as a field on the plugin object to say this plugin supports attach or detach or not.
Yeah, it would be nice, but I'm not sure that this CRT approach will work.
Yeah, I agree. We'll have hurdles.
Taken.
What about if this capability is reported during the registration? Like we already have a registration mechanism between the kubelet and
the problem with the
driver
registration is that it is per node, and what we want is something that is per plugin per cluster.
Oh, okay.
We need a higher level registration mechanism.
wanted to say something. Yeah, most of the volumes are going to be dynamically provisioned anyway. So the dynamic provision can set the field. It can probe the driver and fill the field.
Yeah.
For those that are not dynamically provisioned, they are either auxiliary volumes for secrets and this kind of volumes.
So the problem is that that this is most important for the plugins that don't have a dynamic provisioner. So things like identity injection, where you only have a mount operation. And those are the ones where it's critical. And if we require the end user to do it, then it gets pretty ugly.
That's right. I'm not sure if these are injected by something automatically or users typically write them. I don't know how Flex works right now, so how many... I know there are many Flex drivers for this identity and secrets providers, but I'm not sure if these volumes...
So the way that Flex gets around this is that they basically extend... it's an exec-based thing, right? So whenever attach is called, we do an exec to the local binary, and we check if attach is implemented or not. If not, we skip it. In fact, let's see. I don't think we skip the attach operation for Flex.
We don't.
Oh, yeah. I think basically what happens is when the plugin is loaded, it's probed to see if it has an attach or detach operation. And if it does, it gets installed as a Flex attachable. If it doesn't, it gets Flex non-attachable.
Yes.
We skip the steps. But it's basically requires probing the plugin directly from the control plane.
Okay, so what I thought is that I will write a separate proposal that will have like several options with either with CRD or proper API objects or with just a flag.
That would be great. Yeah, that's getting a head start on the work that we need to do.
Or is there any other volunteer?
I was considering volunteering for it, but if you do,
I'm happy to review.
Now, this should be simple enough. Like, there are several options, we all know about them, and just them together and decide.
Yep, I agree. One more thing, as we started talking about this, for ephemeral volumes, we're going to need to think about inline volume support.
Yeah, that's my next point. In my personal opinion, we should have inline support for all CSI volumes, not just this ephemeral one. Because of the API consistency, we have all the other volume plugins, both inline and in PVs. And for and other use cases also to get the same capabilities and Flex can be also attachable and inline. And
yeah, I know for consistency, it would be nice to be able to do all volumes inline, but the challenge is around the secrets and how we can...
Yeah, that's what I talked to Jordan about. And the only problem is this detach with secrets in CSI that requires it. That's the only problem we have.
Interesting.
Okay. Regular users typically are not allowed to use any random inline volumes. So we will have PSP to allow them only these ephemeral volumes for secrets and identities and whatever. And these are not attachable typically. So maybe we won't have this problem. And if the administrator allows users to use inline CSI drivers that requires secrets on detach, then it's his fault.
So PSP can be used to limit inline CSI volumes?
Yeah, we have the same for Flex already.
But the problem is, like, what if I'm an admin and I want them to use it for things like, identity injection plugins, but I don't want them to use it for remote volume plugins? How do I say I want you to do it with one?
You whitelist CSI drivers.
Oh, okay.
There is already a whitelist of allowed Flex volume drivers.
Yeah. Interesting.
Same. And so that could solve the inline volumes.
Mm-hmm.
And
trouble with that one is that it requires a cluster administrator to know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, it requires already the cluster administrator to install the drivers.
Yeah, it's just another step that they need to make sure that they do. If they don't do it properly, then they could end up with security.
Yes, it's exactly the same in Flex right now.
Is there anything that we could do to improve that story and make sure that they don't accidentally shoot themselves in the foot?
I don't know. Documentation.
Yeah. Like, I was thinking, if we only allowed non-attachable CSI drivers to be inlined,
then I think it's even more complicated then, because the administrator needs to think about which CSI drivers are attachable, which are not attachable.
They don't, because the system will enforce it. So if the cluster administrator doesn't set any limit, all plugins are allowed, then the dumb end user says, oh, I'm going to try to use a remote volume here, and it's going to fail because it has attached.
But then the user needs to think about which volume plugins are attachable and which are not.
Yes, and I think that might actually be a good idea, because using non-attachable volumes, or using attachable volumes in inline, just ends up with so many issues. Just basically failing that right up front and saying, no, you can't do that, don't do that, create a PV/PVC might be a way to encourage good behavior.
In my opinion, the only real issue is secrets on detach. Like the rest, I think I have covered.
So the issue with secret on detach, is it the same issue we discussed earlier, where we don't have the secret information during detach?
Yes, exactly. If I have a PV with CSI volume source, then it refers to secrets in admin only namespace. So if administrator removes the secret before the detach, then it's admin's fault that he removed the secret and we can't detach the volume, and well, we can't do anything about that. But if the volume is inline, then it can refer only to secrets in the same namespace. That's user namespace. And user can remove any object at any time. And we should be able to detach the volume even if user makes such mistake, because it's a stupid user. And the answer for that would be another PSP that would allow users to use only non-attachable volume sources. And administrator can configure which users can use attachable volume sources and which can't. And the administrator can give permissions to use attachable CSI plugins only to some, I don't know, users. They will.
So my concern with that is that if we allow them to use remote volumes, there are some functionalities of remote volumes that basically depend on a PV object existing. So for example, topology, it completely breaks down if you use an inline volume. And we have no good way to block that.
We have already the same problem. Like if you have pod with GCE inline volume, and the pod is scheduled to the wrong zone, you have the same problem. The volume cannot be attached, and you get some error. And it's user's error.
And if we can prevent a user from doing that up front instead of like, oh, you might fail and it might end up with weird behavior.
In my opinion, these inline volumes are for very special cases. When basically administrator wants to do something, and it's up to them, up to these users to create a pod spec so it gets scheduled on the right nodes. There you can have pod affinities, anti-affinities, node selectors, and these kind of things in the pod spec. And again, even for inline volumes, in-tree volume plugins, there is a filter in TSP that tells which user can use what in-tree inline volumes. It's already there.
Yeah. I think what it boils down to is how much we put onto the cluster administrator and how much we automate. The trade-off is the more that we automate, the less consistent we are with the existing way of doing things. The more we put on the cluster administrator, the greater the possibility that they're going to do something stupid and end up with a security vulnerability inadvertently. We could carry this discussion on. I think I'm starting to lean towards your direction, but we can carry this discussion on at a later point.
Okay, I will update my proposal. It probably won't be ready tomorrow by the SIG storage meeting.
No worries.
So we can discuss it later.
Cool. Feel free to add in more items to this, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
Okay, so in-tree migration, non-attachable CSI drivers without external attacher, we already discussed that. Inline CSI, we already discussed that. And project management, we discussed that. Do you guys want to go over the bugs real quick? We're way over time. Let's just do that on Friday. If there's any PRs that need attention, just ping me offline. I think the ones that I was looking at, I reviewed these two already. All right, we'll meet on Friday then.
Saad, sorry,
Yes.
I addressed your comments. So basically, I mean, if you have a second to take a look at driver registrar PR.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll take a look at that. Cool, thanks, Sergey.
Take care, guys.
Take care, everyone.
See you.
Bye.